Ukraine-Russia talks postponed. Moscow refuses to drop its war goals. The US war with Iran is already hitting Ukraine. Missile supplies could run out, but there is a game changer: interceptor drones. Allies are watching for the first time. And here is the twist: the US was not ready for this conflict. It could last until September 2026. How will Iran's war affect Ukraine's defense? Can Kyiv survive the next wave of threats? And what will Moscow do while the world watches the Middle East? Find out in our latest episode. The talks to end Russia's war in Ukraine are postponed for now. There is no date or place for the next meeting between Ukraine, the US and Russia. President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed this in his daily evening video message.
We are effectively in daily contact with the United States. Right now, due to the situation around Iran, there are not yet the necessary signals to hold the trilateral meeting. But as soon as the security situation and the overall political context allow us to resume this specific trilateral diplomatic work, it will happen. Ukraine is ready for it.
President Volodymyr Zelensky told the Italian newspaper Corriere della Sera that he hopes that US-Israel action against Iran will not stop US peace efforts on Russia's war against Ukraine. He said the next round of talks was planned for March 5th, 6 in Abu Dhabi, a city now hit by Iran in response to the US and Israel. Russia has already reacted. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Moscow, while condemning US actions against Iran, still wants to work with the US to end the war in Ukraine. At the same time, Russia's position stays strong. They continue to talk about reaching their goals.
So, we just want, aside from the goals that President Putin has set in the Ukrainian situation, and which will undoubtedly be achieved, preferably through negotiations, but if not through negotiations, then by other means.
In Moscow's usual style, Lavrov blamed the West for the war against Russia. He said the war is no longer hybrid, it is now a hot conflict. He said the West has used Ukraine for years to pressure Moscow, and Ukraine's preparation was planned on purpose. Lavrov also blamed Europe for preparing a war against Russia. He said the security guarantees for Ukraine were not only not approved in Moscow, but they were never ever seen there.
The guarantees, as described by Zelensky, mean that Ukraine, within the borders that will remain for this Nazi state, will be assured security. Under these guarantees, Ukraine would be accepted into the European Union, which already takes a tougher stance than NATO against Russia, building its own military units, infrastructure, and armaments in preparation for a potential conflict with Russia.
Meanwhile, the US war against Iran could directly affect Ukraine's weapon supplies. Because of the Iran conflict, Ukraine may face a serious shortage of US missiles for air defense. The military may have to make hard choices about what to protect and what to leave. Since the conflict started, Iran has fired hundreds of missiles and drones at Gulf countries. Most were stopped using PAC-3 Patriot missiles, the same type Ukraine uses to defend against Russian missiles, says Reuters. Experts warn that the US war against Iran may make it harder for Ukraine to get PAC-3 missiles. Sergei Kuzan from the Ukrainian Center for Security and Cooperation says the yearly production is not enough for the US and Gulf allies. Fabian Hoffman from the University of Oslo says Gulf countries have missile stocks, but they may need to use them more carefully over time. Mykola Beleskov from the National Institute for the Strategic Studies adds that a bigger shortage can be avoided if the US and Israel quickly destroy Iranian missile stocks. Most Patriot missiles for Ukraine come through the Pearl program, but delays are possible if the conflict lasts. Emil Kestemel from the Blackbird Group notes that if air defense weakens, the military will have to choose what to protect. Hoffman adds that Ukraine needs to strike Russian missile factories and allies should invest in new missile systems. Meanwhile, the US and at least one Gulf country are negotiating to buy Ukrainian interceptor drones to stop Iranian Shahed drones. This was reported by Financial Times, citing a representative of Ukraine's defense industry. After the US and Israel operations against Iran, Gulf countries face threats from Iranian Shahed drones. Tehran was built up tens of thousands of these drones, so Gulf countries want new defense systems that are cheaper than Patriot missiles. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that Ukraine is open to talks about exchanging technology and weapons because Gulf countries have a shortage of Patriot missiles and interceptor drones. He said this in an interview with RAI Italy.
We have received signals from our partners in the Middle East. Iranian Shahed drones have already struck civilian targets in these countries. They are asking us for our expertise, and we are open to it. If their representatives come, we will provide our guidance, especially since there have also been requests from European countries and the United States. They want us to share our experience with Middle Eastern partners. As for weapons, we are at war ourselves, and I said it openly. We are short on what they have. They have Patriot missiles, but hundreds or thousands of Shaheds cannot be intercepted with just those missiles. It's too costly. It's not about sparing people, of course, but they simply don't have enough missiles. That's why they need interceptor drones, which we have. Meanwhile, we are short on PAC-2 and PAC-3 missiles. So when it comes to technology exchange or arms sharing, I believe our country is ready and open for that.
Ukraine was the first to use serial interceptor drones costing a few $1,000s to destroy Russian version of Shahed drones, which are launched in large numbers at Ukrainian cities. A Shahed drone costs only $30,000, while interceptor missiles like PAC-3 used in the Patriot system cost more than $13.5 million each. Because of Iran's large drone stocks, the Pentagon is very interested in Ukraine's experience. One Ukrainian official called the talks with the Pentagon a sensitive topic. A defense industry representative said that any sale of Ukrainian system, even those made outside the country, must be agreed with Kyiv. Recently, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said his country will involve Ukrainian experts to shoot down Iranian drones in the Gulf. According to Forbes, Ukraine is ready to share its experience fighting kamikaze drones in the Middle East, but with conditions. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky offered help in exchange for a ceasefire. Zelensky proposed sending Ukrainian experts on intercepting Shahed drones to Gulf countries. At the same time, Kyiv expects regional leaders to pressure Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer. This initiative came after Iranian drone attacks on Dubai and US military sites in Iraq, Bahrain, Kuwait and Qatar. Finding effective and cheap ways to stop drones become very important for the region. According to the reports, in April 2025, Yemeni Houthis shot down 7 US MQ-9 Reaper drones in less than 6 weeks, with total losses over $200 million. Army General Brian Fenton said at a Congress hearing that opponents use drones costing about $10,000 while it takes $2 million missiles to destroy them, creating a big cost imbalance. European NATO members face a similar problem last fall when Russian Shahed drones entered Polish airspace. Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said using F-35 fighter jets with Sidewinder missile against cheap drones is expensive and not tactical. Forbes reports that in 2025, Ukrainian forces destroyed Russian air defense system worth $4 billion, much of it with cheap drones. Moscow cannot replace the loss of missiles fast enough against Ukraine's attacks on military and energy infrastructure. Since Shaheds were first used in 2022, Ukraine has tracked and destroyed about 57,000 of these drones. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte called Iran a key factor in helping Russia's war against Ukraine. He said that pressure from Israel and the US could weaken Iran's capabilities regarding Ukraine. He said that in an interview with Newsmax.
Iran was one of the key enablers of the Russia war effort against Ukraine through these weapons of destruction, these Shahed drones. And the fact now that Iran is facing this full onslaught of Israel and the US will also degrade their capacity to export their chaos even to Russia and therefore to Ukraine.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said that Ukraine's experience with drones is now available to allies in the Middle East. He explained that all partners are learning from Ukraine. The knowledge Ukraine gained over the last 4 years about drones and how to stop them can now be used by other countries in the region. Rutte called this a positive development. In the US, they expect a war with Iran to continue for a few months, possibly until September 2026. The White House military leadership says that Donald Trump's administration was not fully ready for such large-scale conflict. According to Politico, US Central Command has asked the Pentagon to provide more military intelligence officers. Support for the operation is planned for at least 100 days. It seems that Donald Trump's administration was not fully ready for the scale of the war with Iran. Because people and resources were rushed in, the operation looked spontaneous and unplanned. Experts say the military action started quickly without a clear plan. Now, the Pentagon is trying to send more air defense systems to the region, especially to protect against Iranian attack drones. The attacks, which have already killed US soldiers, are a big concern. Stopping drones is the main priority, but cheaper and more effective systems are needed because most US drones have not been very useful in combat. Trump's advisors are increasingly worried about the Iranian campaign, and some in his circle think that the operation should end as soon as possible. CNN reports this information. Just a few days after the start of fighting in Iran, many of Donald Trump's advisors want the US to leave the campaign quickly. Sources say the operation raised worries about the political effects of a lone war without a clear goal and with low public support. The president's aides are still trying to understand why the operation started and what will happen next. Journalists note that the Iran campaign is unpopular among Americans. Polls show that voters fear another Middle East conflict and don't clearly understand the administration's goals. This has also caused a split among MAGA supporters, partly because of Trump's 2016 promise to avoid foreign wars and regime change. The administration fears the campaign could turn into a lone war without clear goals or political gain, leading to further military losses. The war has already affected stock markets and energy prices, which could influence voter sentiment. One source called continuing the war a political risk and said people can only hope that it does not get out of control. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your comments.